Hi, and welcome everyone to Greenlane on Wednesday, May 6th. I was just looking over the calendar to get the date correct. And my name is Robin Forster, and I'm with Feel So Alive, and also past co-chair of Greenlane and on the events committee. And I'm standing in for Teresa today. We'd like to welcome you and thank you very much for joining us today in our new format, whether you're here live or whether you're watching the replay. The Greenlane Board and Events Committee wanted to find a way to continue connecting with and serving our members and with timely topics. And so this is what we're trying out along with, I think, most of the world. So we appreciate your patience because as we all know, there's probably going to be a hiccup or two as we go along. And again, thank you very much for coming. We know that folks will be coming in even after we've started, and let's just be compassionate and be glad that they were able to join us. I especially want to thank Tammy and the events committee for making this happen, and especially Tammy for learning new technology. So you guys, let's give Tammy a round of applause. Okay, just a few reminders about the meeting today, and I think that you all know we want to keep ourselves muted unless there's a reason for us to speak, like when we do our self-introductions or at the end of the presentation when we're getting ready to ask a question. And Tammy also, I have given her a lot of power for today. She also can mute and unmute you. And that way this recording is just going to be cleaner, and as you all know on Zoom, we can only hear one person at a time. Okay, first of all, we get to do self-introductions because it's been a long time, and we'll be doing lots of virtual hugs, I'm sure. And what I'm going to do is call on you so you can unmute yourself, and I want you to give us your name, your organization name, and then Teresa suggested that we say one positive experience that you've had lately, and I like the idea of something positive. So Doug, since you're in my upper left window, why don't you try to unmute yourself? I'm not sure if I need to or you can.
There we go.
Great.
Hey there, Doug here from Technoprint, where we are continuing to operate. So that's the positive thing is we're still running. The presses are still running, kind of, sort of business as usual. Obviously, we're staying away from each other, and people don't share equipment and all that. But you know, sort of like business as usual here.
Excellent. And Sarah, is that you labeled as user? Okay. Sarah, why don't you go next?
It's so I'm called something else, it seems, in each meeting I attend. So hi all, Sarah Whitney with the Longtown Watershed Council, run the Urban Waters and Wildlife Program, and everybody in the council is continuing to work from their homes. Things are going pretty darn well as near as I can tell. I'm just trying to figure out how to do site visits. I don't know how to do that safely yet. But I'd say a positive thing that's been happening here is a whole bunch of plant trading. I seeded up a whole bunch of extra plants, and then I made them available for folks and not asking for anything in return, but I've gotten so many seeds in return. I'm going to be able to continue to feed my family for years to come. So it's been great.
Neat.
Community action.
Okay, and Sarah, if you want to, thank you for muting yourself. Casey.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I have been loving it ridiculously, this whole thing so far. I mean, not the bulk of it, but there's been such moments of beauty and such moments of seeing people's values actually enacted. And so for me, it's just been gorgeous. I know at Seneca, it was clearly an uncertain time and the bottoms dropped out of the market, but we wanted to make sure our employees knew that they were going to be taken care of. So we've elected to pay all of their health insurance for the next number of months. So the part we usually pay plus the part they usually pay, we want to make sure they feel really secure in their families and at home. So we're going to be paying that through June at this point, and we'll see how that goes. And then second of all, when there was that run on, toilet paper and food and everything in the stores, we thought, well, how do we take care of them? And that must be a kind of scary, it is this kind of scary thing. Like, are there supplies was actually the question. So we got enough supplies, pallets full of supplies, rice, toilet paper, got a hold of a butcher, got frozen chickens, the whole shoot and match. And we gave these huge bags of provisions to every single one of our employees, all 470, so that they could go, you know, to their homes around their dinner tables, and know that they had stuff. And more than that, it was not just us saying we value you, it was us showing them we value them, and them feeling incredibly good and secure and honored by it. So anyway, we've just been every way we can just loving on them, and they have appreciated it. So I think it's been an amazing experience.
Casey, that's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Judy.
So I'm Judy with Northwest Exposures Photography, and I am completely out of business. I haven't had work since the end of February. It's just I'm not an essential business, and I'm honoring the stay-at-home mandate. So I'm just trying to do, I've gone through a lot of boxes and sorted a lot of closets, and I'm also doing some tutorials, cleaning my equipment, evaluating what I have, what I need as far as upgrade. And I did a really thorough clean of my studio. And so I've just been really kind of catching up with things that I haven't really been able to do because I've been busy in the past. And I look forward to working again really soon.
Great. Thanks, Judy. Jody, if you want to go next.
Sorry, that took me a second to unmute. So hi, I'm Jody Summers. I know most of you, and I work for Essex General Construction, and we are still working. We're doing it safely. This is my home office, and I kind of like it. One positive thing for me has been our partnership yesterday on Giving Tuesday Now with KLCC and Food for Lane County. We were able to raise enough money for, let's see, 7,210 meals for our neighbors in need. And KLCC was able to meet their fundraising goal. So it was like just a win-win-win. And besides just the company donating, our employees stepped up. So it was just such a feel good. So there have been, you know, my concern is for a lot of people who are less fortunate than I am. This has been relatively easy and nice for me. I've got what I think is a lovely home to be in on 5 acres of land. And I just really feel compassion for those who are maybe in a dysfunctional relationship or homeless, or, you know, there are just so many challenges and economic inequities that are really exacerbated in this time. So I'm doing good though. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Jody, thank you very much. And Phil, why don't you go next?
Unmute button. There we are. I got it. I've unmuted. I'm Phil Barnhart. I left the legislature most of 2 years ago, and I've been working for the last year organizing the Emerald Valley Electric Vehicle Association, the object of which is to do some social things with other electric car drivers and brag a bit about our machines. But the other more important thing is actually advocating for electrification of transportation and getting other people to come to understand the wonders and the values and the fun of driving electric. My recent experience is sort of apropos of that. My wife and I walk a lot these days, get out and about the neighborhood. Mostly we can walk on the sidewalk. And what I have noticed, and it took me a while to figure this out, is how quiet it is and how clean the air seems to be. The other day I was out, the garbage truck was 4 or 5 blocks away, and I could hear it just fine. Never had that experience before, because normally when we're out during the day, there's lots of vehicular traffic, and almost all of it is gasoline or diesel powered, and it makes a lot of noise. Not there now. Get a little bit of a look at what the place will be like when 80 or 90 or 100% of us are driving electric or riding our bicycles or instead. And I thought that was a great thing to experience.
Nice, thanks, Phil. And let's go to Lisa next.
I'm formerly with Food for Lane County. I was the summer food program manager. And until recently, I was on the board of Willamette Valley Grown and Crafted. And I think in both positive and negative at the same time, for Food for Lane County, I've been doing emergency food box deliveries every afternoon, Monday through Friday. And these are people who can't leave their home and they're in a food emergency. And on the positive side, it's the numbers have been going down a bit. Not quite sure why, but a little less demand needed. But Food for Lane County has been very creative about how to get food out to people in need in the community, including in some of the more rural areas. So that's been a plus.
Great. Okay, good. Thank you, Lisa. And let's go to Harvey. What we're doing is self-introductions, and I'm picking just because it's a little easier for us to do that. So name and tagline and something positive. Oh, you're still muted. 1 second. Let me see if I can fix that.
There
Okay.
we go. How's that? Thank
Much
you.
better.
I'm Harvey Ginsberg. I'm an insurance broker, but basically I'm involved with Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm the co-lead of the Oregon chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. Personally, I would echo Jody's and Phil's statement that things are pretty nice for me personally. I'm at home, I have plenty of food and safety and my dog to walk, and I've been gardening. Also, Phil, yeah, I've been noticing how quiet it is out, and it's really rather pleasant to hear birds and more than traffic. As far as Citizens Climate Lobby, we're continuing to meet virtually with members of Congress and plan additional lobbying efforts to promote the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which has been introduced in Congress, bipartisan. And that's our main thrust, is to lobby and promote that particular act. And I will leave it at that.
Great. Harvey, thank you very much. And if you will self-mute. And Kelly Bell, are you there? We'd like to hear from you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for this. It's good to see everybody, hear from everybody. I am the Master Recycler Coordinator for Lane County Waste Management Division. Several folks on this call are Master Recyclers. Hello to everyone. This has been very weird, but there are lots of parts of this that I enjoy. First, my shout out is to my employer, Lane County Government. They just worked at lightning speed to get as many of us, and there's over 1,000 people that work for Lane County, as many of us as possible set up to do work from home. And that's mostly what I do. And then I go in 1 day a week when we have very few staff. And so that's kind of my work life. And also I have the flexibility because my granddaughter's out of school, that I'm taking a little time off each week to be part of caring for her and trying to do a little bit of homeschooling with her. So this has been pretty sweet for me. Personally, the Lane County Master Recycler Program, you know, we're used to getting out in the public and interacting face to face. And so what I'm working on is kind of trying to get my skills up in terms of remote meetings. I've been attending a lot of remote meetings. I facilitated a couple for Master Recyclers. And I'm also helping a Master Recycler with an independent project, which is called askamasterrecycler.com. If you're interested, check it out. It's a fledgling project to help the community live well and waste less.
Great. Kelly, will you please put that on our Facebook page and email Tammy so she can put it up on the website?
I will contact the developer to see if he's ready for that. We're mostly sending it out to master recyclers right now to fill it up. But yeah, as soon as it's ready, I definitely will.
Oh, super. Okay. Thank you. And next, Jeannie's iPad. Jeannie Steery, is that you?
Do you mean Janine?
I do. Thank you. I'm so bad at that. I apologize.
That's okay. I'd love to see Jeannie as well, so that would be fantastic if she's on the call. But this is Janine with eWeb, and it's been a long time since I've seen you all, so it's good to see happy faces and positive thing. Oh, goodness, there have been bright spots to this past 6 weeks. It's interesting to be home and see your neighbors at all times of day and see the cute kids running up the street with their parents and their little puppy and everyone waving and saying hi to each other. And we've had great weather in general, so it's been nice to, I've never spent this much time in my house, honestly. So I've been on my back deck. I have enough space that I can change my office as much as I want. So I can go on the front, I can go on the back. So I feel very, very fortunate. I'm glad to work for eWeb at a time where we're really helping a lot of people in need. So this last Friday, we released another $200,000 in funding assistance for people who are having trouble paying their bills. And we know that's just the tip of the iceberg. And I was so thrilled to hear Jody on the radio yesterday with the KLCC fundraiser. And there's just a lot of good and coming together going on in our community. And I'm glad to have a little part of that. So I will leave it at that and just happy to see everybody's faces. And I'll go back to my multitasking.
Okay. And we are glad to see you too. It's been a while. So this is pretty special.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks. And let's go to Stephanie now.
Hi, everyone. I am currently working in the City of Eugene's Emergency Operations Center, and I am focused on just doing an assessment of how nonprofits, specifically social service nonprofits, have been impacted from COVID. And so I found the subject of this webinar to be interesting. Like, I'm also just interested in how people are using technology. So it's been a while since I've been to Greenlane, but I just wanted to connect and say hello and see where there are intersections. So thanks for having me.
Great. Well, we're glad that you're here. And Lynn, Lynn Crane, you're next.
Well, I arrived late, so I'm not sure where we are or what I'm supposed to say, but I own a small company that makes embedded computers. We're very involved with technology, of course, and primarily medical and defense applications. So I wanted to see what the ideas were for how things evolve coming out of this. I'm very lucky in that we're considered a critical manufacturer, and we have been open with 95% of our folks being remote for this shelter-in-place time. And I'm also lucky in that my wife is not working and I get to see her a lot. So that's a positive change for us. So we'll see where things go from here.
Great, Lynn, thank you very much. And I'm Robin Forster with Feel So Alive, and I am still working, have always worked remotely, so to speak, as a solo entrepreneur. And I do delivers once a week. So if y'all need products, I can drop them off. And let's see, next, let's go to member announcements and kudos. We have about 5 minutes for announcements. If you all would raise your hand, then I'll know who has an announcement. And if you don't, we will go on. Okay, I'm not seeing anything going on. Or do you all know how to use the reactions button to get either a thumb to come up or to get a clap to come up? That's a pretty fun toy. It's down at the bottom of your nav bar, and I think everyone should have that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the topic of the day. And this month we have Todd Inman, who is on the board of Technology Association of Oregon. And Todd is co-founder of BitCork, and he will be talking about the deep macro changes that are possible as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and how technology will help enable these changes for the better. And this presentation is going to touch on potential changes such as how we buy food, how businesses interact with employees, and how we care for our children, all of which can affect sustainability and lower our carbon footprint. This coming changes may be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we should all be prepared to take advantage of. And Todd has not checked in yet. This is a recording that we're going to play from earlier. And the plan is for him to be here at the end so that he can answer questions. So if everyone will cross your fingers that the technology works, I'm going to go into screen share. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jody. I'm going to go into screen share. I have his video up and on another monitor. Okay, can you all see the BitCork with Todd in the upper right? And I'm hoping that the sound is loud enough. Y'all, please do something if it's not.
Doing a presentation for Greenlane to talk a little bit about sustainability and how coronavirus is affecting that. And of course,
okay, I'm stopping just to check on sound. Can you all hear okay? Sketchy, okay. Not sure what I can do about that except turn up your speakers. Okay. So
I'm here from my home office, and there's some obvious things that we're going to talk about today that everyone's experiencing. But I try and stay up on trends and what people are writing about because that's part of my job. And I think there's some secondary effects that are really, really profound that I think are slightly less obvious. And I'm excited to share those with you today. And of course, I'm at home with my 3 kids. So if you hear, you know, playing in the background, that's a possibility as well. Things that we're seeing this stuff change, and that's kind of grouping that into stuff that we kind of see. The first is that we're
okay, I'm seeing in the comments that there's no sound, so let me try this again.
Consciousness is going, and that can affect all sorts of businesses. And indeed, agriculture is the largest single industry in the United States. And so it's impossible for that change in food not to affect all business. And then lastly, cities will change. And I think as we adopt remote work and food changes and all these fundamental components of how we identified ourselves in a society change, we're going to see cities change along with that. And so this is based on research I'm doing around venture capital, reading futurists, and just, you know, in general, trying to be involved in that discussion. So let's start with work from home. Again, 50% of people that are working still are working from home, and that impact, again, will last 12 to 18 months. So we're going to tool differently. We're going to develop more robust home offices. We're going to develop more robust tools for working at home. And all of that will change how we interact with our peers who are in the office. I actually see also a lot of commercial real estate dropping in value because there's going to be a number of companies that don't go back to having offices. I think, you know, companies that need to meet with clients in offices are going to retain their space, but most companies are probably going to thin down. They're also going to change how desks are allocated. Desks will be a shared space and people will be working on different days. And I think that's going to impact how offices are occupied. Another big factor is uncertain childcare. So it's uncertain and unclear when childcare is going to spin back up, when children will be able to go back into daycare or back into different types of care. And I think that that's actually likely to have a profound impact on the childcare industry. And I think it's going to fragment it and change it quite a bit. Some of these childcare places are not going to be able to be down for 18 months and recover from it. So I think you're going to see an increase in home care and an increase in localized care where parents are having their kids cared for at locations closer to them. But it's going to be a while before people are willing to accept those risks. So that's going to fundamentally change childcare. And then last thing to talk about is computer tools that are going to adapt for work. And primarily the thing that we're going to need to see is there's kind of 3 different stages of work from home automation and work from home tools. One of the primary ones is going to be tool sets to support asynchronous work. And what I mean by asynchronous work is you think about it like someone gets the ball in an email of something they need to do, and they might be one of 5 people in a chain that need to do something on an item. They'll do their part, they'll send it on, they'll tack on the messages about the part they did, and it'll get passed to the next person. And that's kind of different than more kind of the centralized hub and spoke model that and management style that we're used to today. And so as that happens, people will be adopting new tools to address that. So even the most computer, unfriendly industries who have been the slowest to change are going to adopt tools like Slack and task management tools at a much, much higher rate, a really extremely increased rate in the next few months just to kind of deal with this crisis. And then I think it's likely that that's going to be a thing that doesn't change back after the crisis begins to be over in 12 to 18 months. The other thing that's going to change a lot is food. So small food is currently in big trouble. It was before this crisis struck us. You saw more and more food being grown by small and medium producers. They're actually responsible for all of the growth in the food industry over the last decade. So the food industry has been growing at about a 3 to 4%. Food and we have more too. But small farms are growing 7% to 8%. So they represented all of the growth. And where large farms are growing, it's because they've purchased smaller farms. But despite that, they're having declining margins and a smaller share of the food dollar. And that has made it really hard for them to continue to function in business. They're going out of business before this disaster at a record rate. And now we're seeing, all the farmer markets closed, which is a primary way a lot of these farms got to market. So the ones that are going to survive are the ones that are going to be able to take their food online, the ones that are going to be working with food hubs, and the ones that are going to be able to transition to sort of a new distribution model that doesn't fit the standard models. And let me take a second to talk a little bit about food hubs, because I think that's a big thing that's going on. I was talking to Amy McCann, who has the local food marketplace. They normally, in the past, have onboarded somewhere around 50 people a year. That's been their clip. In the second week of the crisis, they onboarded, I think she said, 15 or 16 people. So, you look at that rate and you're like, wow, that's more than 10 times an increase. And I've called around to a lot of these food hubs, and they're servicing a few hundred people, which is well beyond their current comfort zone. And most of them have waiting lists. So people are making this shift. If they're going to order at home, they want it to be a different type of food than they were getting in the grocery store. I think there's this fundamental shift that has taken place in people's psychology around food that's super important to understand for all business people. And that is when you go into a grocery store, and you've never had to worry about it before, but you go into a grocery store and there's food there that you've come to count on, you start thinking to yourself, where am I going to get my food? And that's making people reevaluate where they're buying food. They're going to farms to try and buy it. They're going to food hubs or making connections with local providers. And I think this is a seismic shift that is going to have massive long-term implications. Even as we return to normal, there's still going to be large chunks of the population, people who have been smokers in the past, people who have asthma problems, who are not going to feel comfortable going out. They're going to want to rely more on working at home and ordering food in at home. And that is going to push forward a massive shift that no big company is actually really ready to address. So even Amazon and Instacart aren't ready to address the delivery at home market that is massively going to shift and massively going to change where food comes from. So I think that the end impact will be a huge positive step forward with a decrease in food miles, because people are looking to change their buying behavior and have a different relationship with their food, have a different relationship with their beverages. I think about end of World War II or World War II shifts that occurred that we never moved back from as this type of scale. And one of those was that women worked in factories, and it caused a massive shift in the labor force availability in the United States. Suddenly our labor force was comprised of 50% more people effectively. And I think that, we never ever went back to that sort of completely male dominated, women not working in the workforce. And that was a hugely positive change, both for our culture and for our economy. And I think we're about to see that same sort of seismic shift in food, where people do want to rely on local food more, and do want to shift their buying habits, and those will not shift back, I believe, in the years to come. Technology has given small producers and food hubs the ability to actually service consumers at a really high level that I believe that grocery stores in the long run are going to be challenged to deal with. And I don't think they'll be able to make the same shift for 5 years to 10 years. So part of this is looking at the food supply chain and deconstructing that piece, and just talking about these pieces. So farms currently get 13% of the wholesale dollar. I think you're going to see that expand as a lot of these pieces in the middle end up getting decreased. One of those is looking at distribution. So distribution, heavy trucking. Of heavy trucking, you're talking like over a third that is long haul that's doing food. So you're going to see a big decrease, I think, in long haul trucking that's doing food. 40% of distribution, 50% of distribution is actually spent doing food distribution from large distributors in downtown. The food hubs are going to change that massively. They're going to shift that cost from fuel costs to manual labor. You're going to see more localized food hubs using more manual labor and using alternative sources for delivery. So instead of a big box truck making 15 stops in a day, I think you're much more likely to see cargo bikes and alternative electric vehicles being tapped to make those distribution decisions. And then shortly, I think this is also going to move forward the awareness and the need for autonomous delivery vehicles. I think that is actually going to be a pretty profound shift too. In the middle, again, you're going to see processing change, less processing. And that will be distributed between local food hubs and also local farms, which I think is a profoundly good thing for our world and our society. And then cities are going to change. So because of this not work from home, when people are hiring for mobile offices, they really will not care nearly as much where people are located. And this is already a trend we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years, especially since tools have gotten better. But really, I think you're going to see companies, more than half their workforce is going to become remote, which means that it's going to be much more practical to live in a city like Eugene and have a top job. And I think that is actually going to change the demographics of the city. Not that everyone's going to flee from a city, but this long-term impact will create, I think, unlike the last downturn, which actually limited people's income mobility and limited their ability to move, this downturn will not have that impact. I think people are going to become more mobile. They're going to move to a wider variety of places and be consolidated less in cities. Just to be aware, I think commercial real estate and urban multifamily units are both going to struggle because of this shift. They're already going to struggle because a big piece of their work is and has been largely focused around servicing people who are going to live in urban cores. I'm going to shut my door for just a second. And I think that when you look at that, you go, okay, so if that's going to happen and that shift is going to happen in commercial real estate where people aren't going to move back as quickly, or they're not going to move back into offices as quickly, that massive shift is going to really hit urban real estate and multifamily real estate. What that means is you'll see less investment in those areas in the coming decade as the previous money from that investment flows in a different direction. And I think that actually may ease some of the problems with urban housing, which will actually be a good thing. And then the next thing is education flexibility. So schools probably, I don't believe schools in Oregon or California are going to go back in the fall. That's my personal belief. And that's based on, again, we'll see some of the states that are lifting restrictions, whether or not they have increased transmission rates. But I don't think we're going to have a vaccine anytime soon, and schools are going to be places of mass transmission. And I think it's going to be really hard for us to be willing to take that risk. So schools are going to be pushed to develop more online tools. More people are going to be attending schools remotely. And I think that that's going to become more of a socially acceptable thing. And that could be very good for education. It also could have some negative impacts where people and kids who maybe are in difficult situations, living situations, might become more challenged in getting help. So I think our schools and our educational service districts are actually going to be changing a lot and trying to adapt to those new challenges. But again, on the whole, I do see some very, very positive things coming out of those changes. I've got a display up here. Sorry, Teresa and Greenlane folks. I am not able to get my slideshow moving forward. Okay. My problem apparently is that I cannot see my mouse. There we go. Something. Okay. So now that's how I think cities will change. And so I think what becomes the question is that during these shakeups and these times of tremendous change, that we really do have the opportunity to kind of explore the world and see the world the way we'd like to see it, remake the world the way we'd like to see it. I think we can look at our cities and begin asking ourselves the question is the infrastructure that's been put in place the best use? Is the model of having a giant 40,000 square foot warehouse 15 miles out of the city and making repeat large truck stops a good use of energy in the city? Or can we localize food more? Can we decrease commuting? And then I think it's bringing forward the question of things like universal childcare, where, look, if childcare facilities need to be regulated in a different way and that it needs to be more universal, can we create a delocalized childcare credit where the childcare people are paid directly to care for kids and meet certain regulatory requirements to allow for kind of a different model of childcare? And I'm actually very hopeful about that. Because I think that that's going to have a massive positive impact on women in the workforce and also the work from home and also commuting and education and all sorts of wonderful things that could come out of that. And then the last thing I think is going to be a very interesting question is basic income. We're going to have a lot of unemployed people. Restaurants are going to have to open up slowly. And the additional subsidies in unemployment and the extension of unemployment is going to keep sections of the economy flowing that would have not otherwise been would have ever otherwise been consumed. People are worried about consumer spending because it's the largest piece of the driver. Where if consumers have no money because they're unemployed, they don't spend. And if they have money, even if it comes from the government, they'll spend a higher portion of it. They actually say less of it because they feel more secure, which could actually drive gross domestic product growth. So my background is as an economist, and there's economists having lots of interesting conversations about this and kind of saying, like, if we want to keep taxable income rolling in and keeping the economy moving along in a way that doesn't see massive GDP drop, basic income is a realistic consideration we should be looking at. I think, it's really interesting that not only is this crisis happening when we were in a massive upswing, the longest period of positive economic growth in our memory, but I think it's also happening at a time when we're seeing things like blockchain, decentralized transactions, artificial intelligence replacing jobs, autonomous vehicles that are electric running in cities, autonomous trucking, and new technologies like widespread broadband brought to us by 5G, all happening at the same time. To have it happen, have this disaster and this crisis happen now, to see all these people dying now, and then you'd be looking forward 5 years and the impact and the acceleration this will have on technology, which will largely impact sustainability in extremely positive ways, is pretty amazing. It really is accelerating paths to all of these sorts of new techs. And I just hope that along with that, that we take the advantage that we have to make decisions as consumers and individuals to build better relationships with our food, better relationships with our work, better relationships with our children and education, better relationships with our communities as a piece of that. So the future is here. This is our opportunity to build the future that we want to see. And I really am looking forward to participating in my own consumer choices and making those in such a way that help that happen. Thanks very much. I'm Todd. I've been one of the co-founders of BitCork, and it was great to be here today to talk with you about sustainability, the COVID crisis, and what impact that's going to have on business. Thanks.
Okay, that was his presentation. Sound was interesting. I apologize for that. I thought if I muted my speaker or my mic that would be beneficial, and it turned out it was not. So got to learn something new. Are there any comments or anything that anyone would like to say? You can use reactions and raise your thumb, and then I can call on you. And we'll just give it a minute or two because I know it's a challenge sometimes. Jody, I saw you unmuted yourself. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I was unsure about what really a food hub is, so that's a question. Is Todd here to answer questions, or is it just us?
Todd was supposed to be here, and I'm not sure what happened. That's why Tammy and I were trying. Pardon me? What, Jody?
Okay.
Yeah, Tammy and I were both monitoring our emails and chat and stuff to see if he was having problems getting on. I'm just wondering, Casey, if you or Janine, since you're both food people, know something about what a food hub is for the rest of us?
I would let Janine answer that one. I think she would probably. Janine, do you know what one is?
Can't help, sorry. I had the same question as Jody.
Okay, well, that's something that we will have to ask Todd about and have him get back to us on.
I do understand that people are going to the locations right now. I've got a girlfriend that has a ranch, and she said it's absolutely insane. Their sales are up 4-fold. So to be up 10% is a big deal. To be up 400% is a super duper big deal. So I get that people are going to places to get stuff like that. So that's interesting. The one question I really have, I'm not sure there's anybody on here that can help answer it. Maybe some folks that are affiliated with the government, like Phil or Evan or anybody, is I feel like our government is set up not to allow for kind of smaller localized food sources, in that the death tax specifically taxes up to 40%. So for farm to stay in a family is almost impossible, because you'd have to have that cash upon somebody's death to pay 40% of the value of that. And so that's why it's so prevalent for bigger companies to purchase those, or for them to have to be for sale. And so anyway, I wonder if we're going to have to relook at the structure of, well, of a lot of things, but that being one of them, and fairly quickly, if we're going to keep our smaller local food sources.
Yeah, I can talk about that topic just a little bit if you would like. I was the chair of the Revenue Committee in the House when Oregon adopted its new estate tax law. And we allowed for an exemption of up to $15 million for a family-owned farm. That may or may not be obsolete now. I haven't checked it in the last several years. The federal government also allows a deferred timing for payment of estate taxes. I understand the point you're making. I think it's a very important one. And you really need an estate lawyer to figure this stuff out and give you some ideas. I don't think it's quite as bad as you think, although there's no question that keeping a farm in the family, if you don't have any other assets, is difficult. In addition, of course, to the fact that you got to have kids who want to be farmers. That if Todd is right, that might be a little easier in the future. One comment about people buying at the farmer can charge retail prices for somebody who comes out to the farm to buy something that to use at their own home, consumer. Whereas if they ship it to a market or they sell it to Long's Meats or something like that, then they can only charge wholesale prices. And so that makes a difference. I know all the small wineries in Oregon would love to sell all their production at the winery to the person who's going to drink it, because they can charge twice as much, half again as much, more, maybe more, than if they ship it to the grocery store or the restaurant. So that might be a way of actually improving farmers' margins in that one instance.
Phil, thank you. That's helpful to have some other pieces to the puzzle. I wanted to thank Judy. She looked up what a food hub was, and I don't know if you all know, but down at the bottom of the nav bar in the Zoom screen, you'll see right to the left of the green share button a chat, and you can click on that and see the chat that's going on to the side. Also, just in terms of food, I don't know if everyone knows about the Imperfect Box, and they're doing food here. So if you don't care that your food looks not perfect, but it's yummy and organic, you can have Imperfect Box delivered to you. We've just started doing that, and it's just been a treat. It's been very fun and easy.
Can I add two things really quick? The
Please.
farmers market is still open. Farmers market is still open on Saturday, and we've been almost every week, and we really enjoy it. It's wonderful. I recommend it. And I keep meaning to ask. Oh, I think you should share Todd Edmonds' contact information with the group. His punishment for not being here ought to be that we ask him directly.
Okay.
Can I say one more thing about food hubs?
Please.
There are, as a reaction to this crisis, there are a lot of businesses that are banding together to do different groupings, one distribution with different small farms. Lane County Bounty is one of them. And I know of at least two others, and I don't know if they're actually going through, and I forget their names right now, but these are our local farmers and food producers who are using one weekly, one platform to send out emails, to take weekly orders, and to just do distribution. So that is one form of food hub. And Willamette Valley, Willamette Food and Farmer Alliance is probably a good source. I know they're doing a lot of that kind of work around Food Hub.
Lisa, would you put that on the Facebook page?
Certainly.
That would be really helpful so we can share it with others.
Absolutely.
And
my wife,
we have 2 minutes, so Doug, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know my wife and I looked into the imperfect food, and I know that they are busy enough that they were very backlogged, and we weren't going to be able to get any produce for like a month when we checked into it.
Wow.
That's a good problem.
Yeah. Okay. Jody, yes.
I just wanted to say one other thing about the idea of school being remote. One thing I've realized, I have some friends who are teachers, and, you know, I have one friend in Florida who's a teacher, and she's doing these amazing classes for her kids online. She turned her guest room into her classroom, and, you know, her school district gave out, you know, devices to everyone with Wi-Fi enabled and all, you know, a hotspot, whatever. But a lot of the rural areas around us, like the Fern Ridge School District in particular, they're just handing out these packets, you know, to kids, and they're not even grading them. You know, there's such an equity, and that's the challenge now, I think, with this crisis. People who are doing well, we're doing fine, you know, but those families who are struggling, it's even harder. So I think we have to really address that.
Jody, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's something we talk about at our house, is how fortunate we are and how we know that we are and that lots of other folks aren't. So something to keep in mind, I think, for all of us, our compassion and our room for compassion is growing. So does anyone else have anything else to say? Otherwise, we're at the top of the hour.
If I can jump in, the one thing that I would, if we're going to move to this radically different future, we should be prepared to radically think about how we address inequity. And one way to do that is through basic income. So right now we just released, what, 300, you know, some trillions of dollars into the economy to try to make everybody right. And there are some economists that would argue that you could have just put everybody on a basic income and spent less money and helped more people. It's a radical concept, but if we really want a level playing field, that is one way to do it.
Great. Thank you for your comment. That's a very good point. It is time to think outside of the box and re-envision our world that is a little more equitable. If there's no other comments or announcements or kudos, it's the top of the hour, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording and then